Hi, folks. So today I want to do a deep dive on stanza 3. Now, unlike my grammar video, like I said, I tried to simplify things because I didn't want to get into a lot of complicated grammar stuff. But in the deep dive, we're going to go there, right? So this is going to be a little bit more complicated when I explain things. Before I move on, I want to mention trolls again because I had to deal with a troll already today named Sherry, who came in, left a comment on my grammar video that was extremely rude. And she says, "You don't know anything about grammar. Paddle is being used as a verb." Now, like I said in that video, and apparently she does not listen to before she makes comments, but I said, I want criticism. I'm asking for criticism, right? But in order for you to criticize me, the way to do it is to come in here and back yourself up with grammar and explain to me, break down how that word, how you think that the word paddle is functioning as a verb in this sentence. And then I'll discuss it with you. But if you're going to come in and be a jerk, you're just going to get blocked because I have no time to deal with people like that. That's number one. Number two, you, of course, are wrong, and you're about to find out why. So sit back and listen. Hopefully you'll learn something here because I'm going to describe to you and tell you that you can't just look at single words. You have to see the context. Okay. That's the whole point of this, right? But as I said, I didn't want to get into things like gerunds and, predicate adjectives. And because if I start throwing out terminology like that in a high level overview, it's going to turn people off because they're not going to get it. So let's go through like we normally do and find the verbs. First verb we have here is because it apostrophe s is a contraction of it is. So the next verb that we have again is. I know a lot of people are looking at wrong. Let me underline it so that I don't forget to tell you. And I'll underline this as a verb just to prove my point later. Our final verb here is will be. Those are the main verbs that I put in square brackets. Okay, so let's go and get the subjects now. First subject, what is the subject for is up here? It. What is the subject for is over here? And. What is the subject for drawing? There isn't one because although it's a verb, we're not using it as a verb. Let me get to that in a minute. What is the subject of will be? Okay, well, the subject of will be is there. And I got to explain this again too, just like I did in my other video. What is the subject of paddle? It's not working as a verb in a sentence. So I'll get to that in a moment. So we got the subjects done. Let's go ahead and do any nouns that we have. Simple ones first, right? Place. Now, technically, no place, okay? No place is working as a subject complement, okay? It's what they call a predicate nominative. Whenever you have a verb like is, are, am, be, okay, those are called to be verbs. And what they're doing, like I explained in my other deep dives, is they're relating this object. It's complementing it. It's giving more information about it, okay? So it's what they call a subject complement. But technically, because we got a noun phrase here, it is referred to as a predicate nominative, okay? So that's the way that's working. And of course, no is working as an adjective, telling us which place. Well, no place, okay? No place. The next one we have is meek, okay? So meek is a noun. How do we know it's functioning as a noun? I haven't been telling you this kind of stuff, but I'm going to do it in a deep dives. Well, there's a couple of reasons. So we have the, okay? The meek. This the is telling us more about meek, okay? And as you're going to find out that we're referring to a group here, the meek. It's a specific group. So for is a preposition. And that's another reason why we know that meek is functioning as a noun, because a prepositional phrase has to end with a noun. And this is called the object of the preposition. So the prepositional phrase is the meek. And it's working as an adjective, and it's telling us more information about the place. Which place? For the meek. But remember, we got this no here. So it is no place. No place for whom? For the meek. Okay, so this is working. This prepositional phrase is working as an adjective, right? Now, of course, we have another determinant here. The. Which end? The end. Another determiner. Okay, so what do we have going on here? Now, this is where I'm going to get into a little bit of the more specific stuff. Technically, this is what they call a gerund. It's a gerund. We know it's a gerund because is going to be followed by something that's going to describe more about the subject. Okay, what is somebody doing? He is drawing. Okay, so in that case, it's describing that what he's doing. It's not telling him to draw. In other words, it's not functioning as a verb. It's saying what he is doing given the context. So here, the end is drawing. Okay, so it's not telling the end. This is not an action verb saying, "Hey, go draw." You know, and we're not using this as a main verb. In other words, we're not describing somebody that is drawing. Okay, so that is a gerund. Now, when it's in this phrase here, okay, it's creating, like I said, just like we have over here, where it's acting as a complement. Okay, so that phrase, all of it, is functioning as a noun here. It's working as a noun. So basically, this whole thing, we're treating drawing as a noun. So if you were to go into a dictionary and look up drawing, you're gonna look at the noun version of drawing. And I'm gonna get to what all of this stuff means in a minute, but that's how that works. So technically, yeah, you could go look up drawing and find a verb form. But because of the context being used here, it's not a verb. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about gerunds is even though they behave as nouns, they're still inherently verbs. So they can be modified by adverbs. And that's exactly what nigh here is. Okay. And nigh is modifying drawing. Now, normally adverbs they can't modify nouns. They only modify verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. That's what adverbs do. They only modify those things. They don't modify nouns. So you might look at me and say, Troy, well, if drawing is a noun, how is it being modified by an adverb? Now, since I didn't want to get into this in a high level language, it's much more easier for me to say that it's working as an adjective. Okay, but it's not. Technically, it's working as an adverb, and it's modifying the gerund drawing. Because when we're in that word, we can still treat it as a verb, even though in the phrase, it's going in the overall clause, it's functioning as a noun. Okay. So we have the same case here. We have ever. And ever is also modifying drawing when it's still in its verb form. So we take this whole phrase, okay, and this is what they call a predicate nominative. It's called nominative because it's functioning as a noun, the whole phrase, okay? And it's giving you more information, in this case, about the end. The end is what? Okay, so describe the end. Well, the end is ever drawing nigh, right? So it's not an adjective. It's what they call a predicate nominative. But like I said, at the high level, I didn't want to go into stuff like this, but in the deep dives, we will. From, of course, is a preposition. We know that. And prepositions can only be followed by nouns and pronouns. So we have there. So there is our noun. It's the object of the preposition. As a whole, okay, this prepositional phrase is functioning as an adverb modifying is, because it's telling us from where? Well, from there, right? It's telling us where from. It's not working as an adjective modifying it. It's modifying the verb. We know that this is acting as an adverb, this entire phrase. And I'm going to get to the meaning again at the end when I do the overall synopsis of everything. Okay, so now let's do the second sentence here. The second one, let me discuss no first, okay? Up here, no was an adjective because it was modifying a noun, right? No place. Down here, and I'm going to explain more about this for a minute, we have a verb, right? So, but it's not a main verb in a sense. We're not talking about an action here. Paddle is not something that we're doing. And I'll get to that in just a second. So know is an adverb modifying paddle. It's giving us specific information about the paddle. In this case, it's negating it. Okay, your is a determiner telling us more information about the creek. Whose creek? Your creek, right? Now, we got up. Up is a preposition. And we know that again, that a determiner is going to precede the noun, okay? And up is going to require a noun or a pronoun object, right? So we have up your creek. We know that that's a prepositional phrase. So this here, now this is going to explain the fact that it's not being used as a verb, is working as an adjective. It's called a predicate adjective. So even though paddle is a verb, its function in the sentence is not that of a verb. I'm sorry that person who left that rude comment doesn't understand grammar, but that is how it's functioning. It is not, I repeat, not working as a verb, even though it is a verb. It's working as a predicate adjective. Look that up sometime. And that is basically following the state verb will be. And it's telling what there will be in our future. Well, there will be no paddle in our future. In other words, we're not going to be doing the act of paddling, right? There is no paddle, right? Look at it that way. So it's functioning as there will be no paddle, okay? But it's not being used as a verb. I repeat, it's not, right? It's a predicate adjective. And that is the case in grammar whenever you have a verb that follows the verb later on down, especially a to be verb, right? A to be verb, whenever you have a verb following it, it is functioning as a predicate adjective. It is not functioning as a verb. Sorry you didn't understand that. Okay. So what about the prepositional phrase? How's that functioning? It's functioning as an adverb. Okay. And it's telling us where. Okay. There will be where? There will be no paddle. Where? Up our creek. Okay. So it's the adverb. Right. So we are definitely going up a creek here, but we're not going to be paddling up that creek. Okay. It's basically what this is telling us. So if there is no paddle up our creek, what will there be? Okay. Well, let's do the nouns first. We got a plural noun here. There will be heavy loads. Okay. And there will be water. Okay. This conjunction and is joining both of these nouns. Okay. Heavy, of course, is an adjective. It's telling us more information about the loads. Just is an adverb that's modifying heavy. Just heavy loads. Okay. Now, high is working as an adjective and it's telling us more information about the water. So it's going to be extending upward at a high elevation, water high. Okay. Heavy loads and water high. Right. So now our clauses here, right? This entire thing is an independent clause. This up here is working as one independent clause. So basically, let's go over this whole thing here to kind of describe what's going on. From there means away from the location that we just put ourselves into. Now, again, you got to remember that we're talking about a whole poem here, right? So what just happened before we read this line? Well, we put in below the home of Brown. So when he says from there, he's talking about the position that we're currently standing at. So away from the location that we just put ourselves into. It, of course, is a pronoun and it's still referring to the same it that's above. Okay. He's now going to essentially use a bunch of adjective clauses to describe it from the perspective of our current location. And you'll notice that after the semicolon is where we have a tense change. So he's telling us currently, this is where you're standing, right? So all this verb is in the current tense. And then he's telling us there will be. In other words, that's where he wants us to go, right? So you can essentially think of this as a crossroads or an intersection. We're standing there below the home of Brown, which is our position, okay? And he's basically describing where we came from and where we're going to. That's why he has a semicolon here, because he's relating these two together. They're both talking about the same place, but we have the option. This is where we came from. This is what's going to be in our future. So it's obvious that we're going to be going that way. It's also obvious that we're going up a creek. And no paddle is telling us more information about us, that we will not be paddling up that creek. Okay. This predicate adjective is basically telling us that. So we're going up a creek and there's no paddling. What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for what's in this phrase: just heavy loads and water high. So, imagine the sign, for example, right? We're driving down the road away where we're looking for a put-in point. Let's put it that way. So we're below the home of Brown now. And basically, he's telling us to go to a place that is going to take us up a creek, right? But we're headed towards heavy loads and water high. And because of the fact that he just got done telling us in the previous stanza that he's going to take us to a place that we need to walk in order to walk, right? To walk from, which is that infinitive phrase, because we can't walk there from where we begin. So remember, in stanza 2, we're going to an origin, but we're not going down any canyon. We're not moving. But the very next command he gives us is put in below the home Brown. So put in below all of that, right? And then down here, he's describing the intersection that we're going to be looking for that's going to take us to a place that has heavy loads and water high. That's where we're going to put in, and that's where we're going to be able to walk from. That's basically the gist of this, unless I get into a sob, which I don't want to do here. But grammatically, that's basically the gist of this stanza, okay? And the tense changes is telling you the direction that you're going to head, okay? And this is telling you current condition, right? So imagine a sign, and one direction points up to where we just came from. And then it's got a turnoff, and it's saying, head this way for heavy loads and water high, right? That's essentially what's going on here. Now, I want to talk a little about meek, okay? And you're going to find this interesting. And but let me get something first out of the way, where he says, for the meek. So if it's not for the meek, it is a place for the brave, right? You probably would agree with that, right? You should at least ask yourself that question. The word for, as a preposition, means it's going to indicate the appropriateness or suitability for something. So the is a determiner, and meek, of course, is a noun here. It's in the prepositional phrase, and it's preceded by a determiner. It's functioning as a noun, right? So for the meek, right, is basically telling us that it's not a place that's suitable for the meek. So if it's not suitable for the meek, now remember, he's discussing where we came from. He's talking about it, right? Saying that it's no place for the meek, right? So it's got to be a place for something then, right? Think about that for a while. Now let me discuss meek a little bit more. If you look at the majority of the dictionaries that are online, they're going to define meek as an adjective. But that's not the way Forrest is using it in this context, right? He's clearly using it as a noun. Okay, it's not being used as an adjective. And the person who told me that paddle is being used as a verb, you probably don't understand this either. You might want to pay attention to that. So meek is usually an adjective. As a noun, it indicates a particular group of people, the meek. Okay. For example, the meek shall inherit the earth. Forrest is treating it exactly the same way. This isn't a Bible, but he's treating the meek as a group because that's the only thing it usually does when it's working as a noun. Okay. And we know it's a noun because, like I said, It's part of a prepositional phrase, number one. Number two, it has a determiner before it. Okay. Now, here's the funny thing: the only or one of the dictionaries that I found is the Oxford English Dictionary. So let me paste the link to you in there. This is like one of the few places that I could find the noun definition of meek. That's the URL. Okay, and it's really odd. Like I said, maybe this is why Forrest Fenn talked about that he looks up words in dictionary. If he doesn't find it there, then he uses it. I don't know. But let's look at that while we're in here, just for grins and giggles. Okay, so we have meek adjective. Of course, you'll find that all over. Meek, quiet, gentle. We all know that. But they have the noun version here. Noun, plural, people who are meek. Okay, and then they reference the Bible phrase, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Okay, so it's referred to as the meek. Okay, it's a noun, it's plural, people who are meek. Okay, and that's exactly what he's talking about here. Like I said, I challenge you can go and try to find other noun definitions for meek, but we know for sure that it's being used as a noun, not an adjective. Just because of the fact that it has a determiner before it and he has for before it. Okay. You don't put determiners before adjectives. Okay. That's not what you do. He's clearly, and also, like I said, a prepositional phrase needs to enter a noun and a pronoun. So he's using the noun definition of it for sure. And I wanted to point this out to you because these little details like this is what's important when you're analyzing the context overall. It's important that you understand what the word is functioning as before you hit the dictionary. So basically, when you're looking at the over the counter, from actually means away from there, like I said. Or in this case, he's describing the home abound as being for the brave because it's not for the meek. We just moved away from there, right? So in other words, the next line is going to describe no place for the meek because we just put in below the home abound. So the end is the place we are now at after we put in. It's pretty simple when you look at this. So basically, guys, I think that we have this stanza done. I also wanted to discuss. I got a message from Bear Looks for Stuff, and he wanted to kind of do a collaboration, and I agree with him. But the thing is, before we do that, I want to finish out the deep dive, and then what I want to do is look at the whole poem in its entirety, and look at all the grammar and see how all of the stanzas connect to each other. But I don't want to involve any solves in this at this point. I want to keep this completely generic so that it'll work with any solve for anybody, anywhere. If your solve does not fit what we're describing here, we know that the solve is wrong. And that's going to be very helpful, right? So after that's done, I think we all can, look at it, look at the grammar and decide and lock in on it and say, okay, we know for sure, right? Now, keep in mind, I've already had grammar people look at this. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just guessing here. I didn't spend 5 seconds on it, okay, or 5 minutes or 5 days. I spent 3 years, right? So anyway, I had them look at it, but that doesn't mean that you guys can't look at it. Of course, I want you to look at it. But again, if you're going to comment, please, please, please show me, write it up, and show me how you think that word is functioning as a verb. Because I don't care who you are. Clearly, paddle is not functioning as a verb here. The main verb is will be. It's a predicate adjective. End of story. You're wrong. So before you go shooting off and putting people down, understand what you're talking about and go troll some other channel. Anyway, after I do all of that, I'd be glad to work with if what I suggest that Bear does is take, when he finally looks at the whole overall grammar, take it and then use it and make a video and show how he thinks that it would work with his solve. And I'd be glad to go back and, critique or we could bounce ideas off of each other and work on it. I'm happy to do that. That's exactly the kind of stuff I want to do as a collaboration with other channels that are willing. because I don't want to be the only one here doing this. Because the problem with learning like this, okay, online on your own, is that you don't have a teacher to talk to. You don't have anybody to talk to. And you can't rely on people in the chase community to give you grammar advice because they're shooting from the hip. They don't know what they're talking about. And then when they go and research it, they're going to realize, boy, I just made an ass out of myself. In order to deal with that, what I did is I talked to friends that I have that are college professors and so on at Rutgers, Princeton. When I couldn't find one, I would go online and I would look for somebody that had like a large following and they seem to know what they're talking about. But I don't just go to one place. What I did, and this is what took so long, when somebody says something, I would cross-reference it, make sure that at least two other people said the same exact thing. You don't want to go with what one person says, right? Because there's a lot of videos out there that are wrong. No, after we do all of that, then I'd be glad to do it. That's the kind of stuff I look forward to. I think that that's more productive in the chase. And ultimately, what's going to happen is we're going to come up with at least a poem that everybody agrees is syntactically correct. And we got the syntax down correct. We got the grammar down correct. And it's clean, meaning that it doesn't discuss any solves. It doesn't do anything. It's showing us exactly how to interpret what Forrest wrote. Once we get to that point, okay, now we have a thorough understanding of the poem. Now you can go through our understanding that everybody agreed with and show us how your solve followed those rules. And I mean precisely. So in other words, if your solve has anything where you say, I'm walking down the canyon, we're going to cut you off right there because you're wrong. We've already going to come to agreement with that in the initial part. And we're all going to assume that everybody is on the same page, quote unquote. So I also want to mention something else. I was talking about my career briefly in the previous video, and I said that, I had a great career as a software engineer, and and then eventually I had my own business. So somebody asked me, "Are you rich?" And I just laughed because no, no, not even close to it, man. I mean, I had a couple of problems. One, I was bad with money management. Okay, and I was young. I was in my 30s and 40s. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, right? And the other problem was, and this was a really bad one, when I was making good money, I invested a lot of money in stock and I had a lot in my 401k, right? But I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And one of the things, like for example, in my 401k, I never rebalanced it. So I'm not going to explain what that means, but I didn't rebalance it. So what ended up happening is when stocks went up, my portfolio was imbalanced heavily towards stock. And then 9/11 happened. Bam. Instantly overnight, I lost tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, just gone overnight. Right. Then later on in my life, I ended up becoming really sick. Okay. And a matter of fact, I was laid off while I was in the hospital. Literally, I got a FedEx letter that told me, you're part of a 3,000 person layoff. Right. So I'm like, damn. So now I'm sick of laid off. Come out, try to find a job. Well, I don't know how many of you are over 50, but there's discrimination out there. Good luck trying to find a job when you're over 50. And then if you combine that with my resume showed all these places that I worked at, right? So people are looking at it and they're like, boy, we're not even going to call him because he's way out of, we can't afford to pay him. We're going to find cheap labor. Because remember, the 2000s is the time, and the 90s, late 90s, was when outsourcing started kicking in, when George Bush was president. So unfortunately, when they could find people overseas willing to work for pennies on a dollar, they're not going to pay you over $100,000 a year to do anything unless they want to hire you for a senior position. And unfortunately, the senior position jobs, like I said, they're high paying, and they don't want to pay a 50-year-old, right? So what they're going to look for instead is somebody that's in their 30s or 40s or fresh out of college that they can pay again for half of what they would pay me. It's just an unfortunate fact of life. And you millennials out there are going to soon realize that that's going to happen to you too, especially due to the fact that a lot of millennials, of course, they're up on tech, they're really high tech. A lot of them are in the computer industry and the IT industry, and eventually that the market's going to become so flooded that their jobs are going to be outsourced. It's already happening, right? And then they're going to reach an age where the new generation that's lower, younger than them is not going to want to hire them. So due to all of those events, basically, I ended up having to use essentially my retirement money to take care of myself. Okay, surgeries, medical bills, and all that stuff. And I never took the easy way out. I never filed bankruptcy. Perhaps I should have. And I didn't jump to GoFundMe and try to find other people to bail me out. I'm a man. I bail myself out. Okay, I'm not going to beg my relatives and strangers for money. I'm going to do it myself. And that's what I did. Okay. And whenever you have a hardship in life, that's what you got to do. You got to man up and deal with it. Okay. And I've dealt with a lot of them. So no, anyway, no. I mean, if I was rich, I would have had no problem going to hell. I would have bought a house in Wyoming and I would have stayed there while I was doing all of this. No, no. I mean, I have enough money to live. Okay. But that's it. I have enough money to live. I don't have enough money to save. Okay. And also, I'm going to be relying on Social Security. I don't have a big nest egg. I don't have any nest egg, to be honest with you, really. So no, I'm not rich at all. It's just an unfortunate thing of what happened that things changed over time. So everybody's bragging how great I think. Oh, I'm so good at high tech and this and that. But I feel sorry for you guys now. You guys, are really smart, probably smarter than me, right? Because you have easy access to learn. But anyway, you guys are lucky that you're in that position. Anything I want to do, if I don't know how to work on cars, I do know how to work on cars. But if I didn't, I could go online and figure out how to do it for the most part. Want to fix my dryer? I know how to do that too. Want to do something with the pool? I can do that. Want to do something with an RV? Anything on and on and on. So it's really cool. But the problem is you worked yourself into a position where you're essentially a dime a dozen. So they're not going to pay you big bucks. It's going to go down and down and down and down and down. Because why would I pay you big money when I can get somebody that's going to work for at least 50% less than you? And they're probably going to do the same job or even better. Right? Unfortunately, that's where our world has come, right? And now we're in a position too where we don't have a lot of people that are in the technical fields because vocational schools are no longer the thing, right? So pretty soon you're going to run out of welders, carpenters, construction workers, pipe fitters. I don't know what the hell you're going to do then because you're not going to go on the internet and find people that really know what they're doing, and you're certainly not going to do it yourself. I don't think I'll be around that happened. And I think millennials will probably be my age when that happens. They'll be getting ready to retire, but we're not heading in a good direction. I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully some new tech comes out. I don't know. But for now, take advantage of it. Learn English, learn these things that you have. And if something like that does happen in your career, maybe you could change careers. I don't know, but these grammar skills are going to come in useful. And like I said, don't just take one place to work. Don't even take my word for it. But I can tell you now that if you want to go get an expert, quote unquote, to review the poem or review your work, you're going to be paying them. They're not going to do it for free. And unfortunately, because a lot of college age people are lazy, what they're doing is they're trying to ask questions on YouTube and so on. And the people making the channels, they're not stupid. They know that you're looking for somebody to do your homework. They're not going to do it. They won't even respond to you 99% of the times, unless you find one that doesn't have a big following, but then you may not be getting accurate results. But if you work at it enough and you can find, people that might not have a high ranking on YouTube, but they still know what they're talking about because you cross-reference them. Use 2 or 3 different people, but keep the plagiarism stuff in mind. But there's a lot, let's put it this way. There's a lot of channels out there that are trying to teach non-English speaking people how to speak English. And just off the top of my head, I didn't do a scientific study, but I would say probably 80% of them are wrong. Now, for the most part, it's not that bad, but because they're doing good enough to teach somebody to speak English when they come here. They're not going to get an editor job because it's still wrong, And unfortunately, what happens is a lot of those same type of sites, they copy each other. Literally. I mean, I mean, I've watched, and they do it in their own words. So they're plagiarizing like mad. And what that does, it propagates the errors. So I would stay away from channels that are trying to teach you how to learn a new language or learn English as a new language. Let's put it that way. You know. And by the way, I'm not talking about like a specific country or anything like that. What I'm saying is it could be any country. I don't care if it's in German, right? And they're trying to teach you English. Be really careful of those sites. Some of them, for example, I found a guy in India, and this guy is smarter than native English speakers that I know. The guy is just amazing. I mean, I talked to him there. He's got, I think, 50,000 subscribers. Not hundreds of thousands, you know, or a million like a lot of the other sites. And it's a shame because the guy is really good, right? Because I started using him a lot when I was cross-referencing, and every time I would cross-reference from other people, I'd be like, wow, you know, this guy, not only is he right, but he explains it a lot better. And it's just really funny. Of course, he's got a heavy accent, so you got to pay attention. And maybe that's a good thing, right? You got to pay attention to how he talks because, you know, he's not a native speaker, but he definitely knows what he's talking about. So anyway, I don't want to drag this on any longer than it is. And, you know, I hope you guys have a good week, and I hope you enjoyed this stuff. And again, I'll do another stanza next time. I'm probably not going to do it this week. I don't know. My birthday is Friday, and I turned 60, and I got other things that I want to do. But you know, my daughter's coming here to visit this week, tonight actually. So I'm going to be busy over the next couple of days. So I'm going to try to get something out there. I don't know what's going to happen, but meanwhile, enjoy. Peace.